All right, hello and welcome to episode 66 of
65?
Intelligence Snacks.
65.
66.
Is it 66?
65 was last week.
Oh, man.
Oh, look at that. Messy start.
Tell you what. And we're live.
We are live. Yeah, this is good. Well, hopefully we're live. It's not been confirmed
We
yet.
might be live.
We'll see.
Rookies.
We'll see.
Well, it says we're live.
That says live now. Is
There
that
you go.
this one?
For anyone listening tomorrow on YouTube, they're going to be very confused.
Look at that. Yeah. All right. Okay. Hang on.
Tell you what. And we're
Shit.
live.
Sorry, guys.
We're just listening to ourselves.
Okay, right. That's no good. Okay, we appear to be live, right? Sorry about that. So we're live on Nostr. So if anybody wants to find stuff on Nostr, like come along to that. Maybe I will. Yeah, I don't know how we'll monitor the chat. Let's ignore that for a minute. Go back to the usual setup. So yeah,
And if you're listening on YouTube, obviously this podcast continues to go out on Thursdays, but you can listen to us live on Wednesday when we record. So
there you
if
go.
you're on Nostr, that is very nice. And for YouTube, obviously, if you're on Nostr right now, you're probably not going to notice the difference, but on YouTube, you should see that there's a brand new name and identity for the pod. Kind of teased it out last week. That was the last ever
Yep.
good stuff. And this is the first ever Intelligence Snacks.
Nice.
Yes.
So, talk to me about
That's the story.
intelligence snacks, Andy. What does it mean? What is an intelligence snack?
Well, this is like a, well, maybe like let's tell the story of why we actually rebranded first. Because the good stuff, we've had like a lot of credible reports back from our handful of every week listeners, the loyal listeners every week.
The loyal few.
It's actually hard to find us when you actually type in the good stuff.
Yes.
Because there's many good stuffs, a lot of fake good stuffs out there. We are like the Gucci bag of podcasts. Good stuff. There's many of them that try to be like us. And we just thought, you know
Is
what?
that what they're trying?
And the good, like when we first came up with the name, the good stuff, it was
Yeah.
like a subtle nod to our company name, other stuff.
Yep.
And in hindsight, maybe it was a bit of a like insider nod,
Yeah.
and maybe not the most like search-friendly name, because it also doesn't really imply what we talk about at all.
I think we liked the name.
I love the
Right?
name.
It wasn't.
Yeah, it's a great name.
I don't know if there was like tons of thought, but it was. It's like, oh yeah, I like that name.
Like everything, it's like good vibes. Let's go. Let's do it.
Name first.
It's
Yeah.
we really just optimize for velocity. It's like let's just go. We feel good about this. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And similarly, we felt good about intelligence snacks. But this is like a concept that we keep going back to. It's about like where are the right places to go and insert intelligence in various processes and systems, and knowing where to apply that leverage. It's not just let's throw intelligence at everything. It's let's go and find the specific points, the high leverage points, or it's actually really useful. And then maybe the rest of it is pretty deterministic, but I think it's actually a really nice way for us to distill long form podcasts into these kind of more thematic short snippets that are like eminently more shareable. And I guess this came out of we've also got the newsletter, formerly The Good Stuff, now also Intelligence Snacks, will be going out weekly. Writing long form every week was super time consuming. I quite enjoy writing long form, but I also get the sense that we're at a point now where fewer people read long form. And I just also had this battle every week thinking it's probably 10 to 15 themes that I could pull from in an hour and a bit podcast. Especially where we've got a guest, there's usually sometimes 15, 20, 30 themes as well.
We're a bit random.
Yeah, there's a lot of good
in the
source
way we
material.
move around. Yeah.
And so I thought actually what we should be doing is maybe distilling that into bite-friendly themes that people can just glance across and extract. And we do overlap as well week to week, develop some of these themes further. So
Well, that was one of the things that got me. Is I liked it because I feel like there's, I don't know, 50 memes or so that come up regularly and get developed over several different episodes. And when we first we used the term intelligence snacks, as you said, as part of a workflow. There's a little bit of intelligence that you want. It's not the whole thing. But yeah, it really I don't know, resonated in my head of saying that's kind of what happens in this podcast is that you end up with these little snacks that come up like every week or every few weeks that get developed. And then, and I guess this is the full course meal on the podcast.
Yeah.
So we put out the meal and then we turn it into some snackable chunks afterwards. But
yeah, it's also hard to like necessarily tune into like an hour and a half every week, or an hour, or however long it ends up being. And it's a nice way to just get across all of the themes and the topics, because there is some, like, I mean, if I do say so myself, there is some interesting stuff we occasionally talk about.
I've had several people tell me that they were surprised that we were about like 6 to 9 months ahead of most stuff that happened as it came out. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's good feedback.
All right, so on topics.
Yes.
Right. So today we were going to talk a little bit, I think, about there was a reasonably serious, well, very serious actually, sort of attack in the Bitcoin world over the weekend, and AI played a part in that. So I think we're going to talk about like sort of AI hacking, AI defense, and then sort of how to use AI in terms of like crisis management and response. So I think there's quite a bit of like novel use of this. There's certainly for myself that I had. And I think that'll probably, as we said, draw ourselves on quite nicely into some of the more like knowledge management work that we've been doing and different pipelines for that. So if that sounds interesting, then follow along.
Interesting indeed. Let's do it.
All right. So if I give a quick outline, what happened over the weekend was, this is like an Australian-based timeline, or I guess like Asian-based, so Singapore time. It would have been, I think I remember being a man of a certain age. I was having a wee around about 3 o'clock. For whatever reason, I had Twitter open on my phone, and I saw a guy I follow called Kevin Loeck. It said, "Ooh, there could be something wrong with Coldcard. I'm having some reports of stuff coming in. Don't want to FUD, but I'm just going to keep an eye on and dig into it." And I was like, "Oh fuck, that sounds serious. I wonder what's going on." I woke up a bunch of hours later, and I took myself off to the office and did anything that I needed to do. But what happened is, it turns out there was some code committed back in March 2021 on Coldcard devices. So it affects like Coldcard Mark 3, 4, I think there's a 5 and a Q, from a particular firmware date from March 2021. If you have any of those devices, go and you store Bitcoin on them, go and look at it. Because what's happened here is it created private keys on those devices that were not random. So generally with private keys, like all the security around public-private key cryptography revolves around the fact that you can choose a random number from a very large search space. And so as long as it is truly random, then you're okay, and you're very well protected and very secure. If it's not truly random, somebody else can regenerate your key. And it turned out that this was not truly random. They actually had like a hardware random number generator that they were supposed to use, and the firmware they committed disabled that and used a pseudo-random number generator, which will take in, say, 3 different forms of entropy. So in this case, it was like a device ID and some, like, I think it was like timing information from the unit, and it would use that to generate a random number. And that random number was like orders and orders of magnitude easier to crack than a private key. Like, it was the sort of thing that you could crack on a laptop in a few hours versus all the compute in the world across all of time. So they're 2 very different numbers.
Yes.
Yeah. And then what happened is people's funds started to get swept on Friday morning. And so this was somebody where you would have a completely offline Bitcoin wallet. There would be funds in there. You haven't touched it, like nothing's happened, and all of a sudden you look at it and there's no funds there because somebody had gone and got your key. The ways you protect against this is you can add additional entropy either by you can roll dice, you can pick your own seed phrases on these devices. If you've done that, you're probably okay. If you've got a very strong passphrase which you add on top of it, that would also protect you. But we're not really a Bitcoin podcast, so I won't go into too much detail on that. But if you're worried about this, do reach out to somebody you know locally from like your local Bitcoin meetup or whatever to get some advice. So but yeah, this was just money was getting withdrawn all over the place. So I think the initial run on it seemed to be around 500 Bitcoin. It's grown seemingly to about 1,400 at the moment. It's obviously one of these hacks where you don't really know like how many people are affected, because there's no registry of like who owns these devices, and you can't really tell the difference between something that's just moved and something that's moved as part of a hack. So it's all very unclear at the moment, but there's a lot of like ongoing analysis being done there. But yeah, so that was going on. Now,
So is that number just purely based on like people essentially self-reporting?
it's kind of self-reporting and pattern analysis.
Okay.
So what you can tell is if a lot of stuff gets withdrawn and goes to a similar address. So that was like one pattern. If stuff goes to separate addresses and consolidates, again, you'd see the same sort of thing. So I think there will be a lot of like just analysis on this over the next.
But like, which is
sort of few
weighted
months.
more heavily? Like, could it be that there's like it's significantly underreported because a bunch of people are probably like set and forget and just haven't necessarily caught up to what's going on yet?
My guess is that it's probably. I think it's probably about correct in the analysis, because I think a lot of this is just people are grabbing the funds and nicking it, and it doesn't seem like it was a super sophisticated attack. And the conjecture that's out there is that this comes very shortly after like Kimi K3 was released, and people could run the models locally, and then that was the model that found the exploit. That again can't be known that that's true. That seems to be a prevailing opinion, just because when people have tried to recreate finding the bug with sort of Opus or Fable or GPT 5.6, I think it was all the Claude models pretty much just refused to do anything. GPT 5.6, you could, if you gave it like if you pushed it correctly, you could find the bug. You could certainly confirm it with that very quickly. And then, whereas I think Kimi K3, you could just let it loose and let it run for long enough time, and it found it. And this was like a compile time bug. It was hard to see from the code unless you were kind of operating between C, MicroPython, and then the Python scripts, I think. So it was an obscure place to find something like that. It was a very, very bad bug. But yeah, so the conjecture is it was probably something like a Kimi K3 or a Frontier model that did it. Another place where some of the AI response comes into this is there's been like a whole red team sort of effort now, where there's a lot of just sort of Bitcoin companies that were trying to help people out. Basically say, okay, well, step one was to get the word out to everybody. So like Twitter was crazy over the weekend. Like all the local meetup groups and things have been buzzing. Everybody's trying to help each other out and explain like what's going on and whether you're at risk or not and what to do about it. But then there was a lot of work to be done to figure out, okay, well, can we confirm the bug? And so again, there's a lot of time spent on recreating the bugs, trying to narrow down exactly where it was. Initially, this was reported as being a Mark III device only. And then it turned out that as that was traced further along, like the later versions of the devices were also compromised. They were compromised in a slightly different way, where they had more entropy, which just means they were harder to crack, but they weren't significantly harder to crack. So it became something like, if you had like a Mark III with no passphrase, your funds are probably already gone, but if they're there, move them like now. If you have like a 4 or a Q, maybe you've got a day. But this is out in the wild now, everybody knows what the bug is, you should be acting straight away. And so again, a lot of that analysis was done so quickly because people were able to then turn those models onto it. Again, like what was reported very quick was that the US models in particular, like the OpenAI and the Anthropic models, even the cyber models, were closed down, like they wouldn't help. So people couldn't do retroactive sort of like red team analysis on their own code bases because it would shut them down because they were doing cyber attacks.
Wow.
So everybody had to go and use Kimi K3, and then I think now like Quen 3.8 Max just released as well, which is an even cheaper but similar output style model. So there's been like a whole effort to then scan all of the dependent code bases in the whole like the Bitcoin ecosystem for bugs using these, with various exploits being reported. A few services that operate with kind of like hot wallets and different things that are under attack have shut those down over the weekend, but it's kind of like a mad scramble. There's some definite like interesting things there around, you know, the fact that, like, on the one hand, you could see somebody say, oh, you know, this Chinese model has caused all this by being released without safeguards. But at the same time, you needed that model without any safeguards in order to have any, like, retroactive, I don't know, just ability to defend yourself in this situation. So that's kind of nuts.
It does beg the question, though, why the like vendors wouldn't necessarily be using the models too, and weren't already using Kimi K3 to scan the code base and look for vulnerabilities.
I mean, there's this particular vendor has been very quiet, as I'm sure. So the vendor is Coldcard. Again, this was widely seen until Friday. It's like the gold standard of like Bitcoin hardware wallets, which turns out was bullshit. But and you know, their release this morning said that they had been using like up to like Fable GPT 5.6, like the previous Kimi models, to scan their code bases. They hadn't found anything. So could be that this is just happens to, there's all sorts of other weird circumstances, right? Which again, it's not really our podcast for that.
Yeah, of course.
But like, it could be that this is just it happened that quick.
Yeah.
That there's an exploit there, and it kind of begs this question, like, yeah, you probably really need to be on top of these latest, sort of particularly open models, and using them to attack your own code bases prior to stuff. I mean, there's certain like defense in depth as well that you can do, which is that like this particular attack is a known attack, right? It would be called like it's generally referred to as a retirement attack, and it's the idea that when somebody sells you a device like a hardware wallet, what they could do is they could say it's a random number, but not make it a random number, and they know where the random numbers are seeded from, and therefore they can recreate all the seeds that these things would ever have created quite easily and harvest it in one go. Now, the way you protect yourself against that is you don't use the random number generator from the device. You use something else. You create it yourself external to the device, and therefore the device isn't trusted with that thing. And so I think it does, like, and similarly to a lot of just hacking from these models, is you've got to look at it and say, all right, I probably need to like rethink like my security posture and my device here is like, these things are like, if these things can come out and hack it, it's like with OpenAI the other week hacking Hugging Face, right? Like it's, you go, all right, we need to rethink like maybe how we do our API access, like how are we metering stuff? Like, are we just accepting requests from any authenticated thing? Like, can we put more? Like, there's always been a problem in the internet, which is that if you run a service that's available on the internet, right? Like, I can go to it as a person, and you want that because it's open, and I can just turn up, say hello, and use your service, and it doesn't cost you that much. If I run a computer that goes to your service like 400 times a second, now it costs you quite a lot. And this is like the DDoS sort of effect, which is denial of service. Or it's distributed denial of service is DDoS, but DOS is denial of service attack, which is all about like causing a lot of cost to the person running the service. Now, one of the things with a lot of these AIs is all of a sudden, not only can you like DOS somebody around denying the service, but making it hard to run and expensive to run, but you can also attack them very quickly. So you could be running like hundreds of exploits an hour on this service trying to get in, and now, as well as just dealing with the traffic, you're responding to all of these different attacks, which really calls for like, okay, the only way you can really respond to that is you almost need your own like harnessing system that does that. But it does beg the question, is there something missing there from the internet? So, you know, again, like this was a something that came up very early in the Bitcoin space was prior to Bitcoin being invented, there was a previous thing called Hashcash. Hashcash was an attempt at electronic money based on proof of work. So this was like an Adam Back thing, and effectively what he said is like, instead of getting an email and it being full of spam, could I have something like an email but with a stamp on it, and the stamp costs money, and it costs money for a computer to create it. And to do that, we'll use this algorithm of proof of work to show that our computer has worked on this for an amount of time, and therefore I won't accept anything unless it has a minimum proof of work. And so you can create these things where you say, okay, well, let's give you proof of work before I access your system. Now, this would materially slow down an attacker, because you'd have to be creating new proof of work on every request that you had. Now, you could do that. It does make the whole system way harder, in the sense that you now have to run your computer or your GPU, CPU, whatever, in a bunch of cycles for no reason to create something that you're just going to throw away in order to make a request. Now, that's good if someone's attacking you over and over again. Another one would be that you could create identities that are cryptographic, and then you attach money to the identity. So it could be that to go and talk to my API, I will just refuse you unless you post a bond of a bunch of money. So there's various different 402 protocols. So the internet always had a payment required protocol called 402. There's a Lightning 402, there's a Cashew 402, there's a Shitcoin 402. There's all sorts of different versions of this. But maybe that's the sort of defense that we need as well. It's like, okay, right, well, if you want to come and talk to this API, you've got to post $100 to start with. And it's going to cost you an amount of money each time you do it. And if we detect that you're attacking us, then we just take the money. And it's just one of those things where you would just lose enough money if you continually attack somebody that it just increases the cost.
Yeah.
Like, security around this sort of stuff is always just, okay, how do I increase the cost of this thing? And I guess, as we've talked about a lot, AI decreases the cost around a lot of different activity. So this is just another one.
This is the new one, yeah.
So it decreases the cost around the offense and the defense.
Yeah.
Which,
I was going to ask that. Do we know whether it's a single actor? Because this was my initial thought, right? It's like, once the exploit is known,
it's multiple now.
Yeah. So why wouldn't a bunch of actors just basically spring up using the same model?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you've just got this attack swarm. Whereas previously you'd just be like, oh, one person's figured it out, and so your attack is limited to in size and scope to some degree.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden, the scale number of attackers can just proliferate once that exploit is known, and you've basically got you're on the clock.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. So it's believed there was a single actor originally. Again, it seems like they weren't the most sophisticated Bitcoin actor, because there were certain things done around how deep they scanned in the wallets, and when they hit address limits they didn't check for so you could have a situation where maybe you were saved because you generated an address, didn't use it, and then generated another address and received to that one. They didn't scan that deep, sort of thing, in your wallet. So there's different things that would be going on in there, but then it's become more and more sophisticated, and it would be. We already know that there are state actors, as in the Lazarus Group with North Korea, that regularly sweep, usually on Ethereum. It's usually you get most of these hacks.
Yeah.
But they will regularly sweep crypto wallets to exploit bugs. They have a whole division of people assessed to it. It would be odd if they weren't attacking those wallets right now. So again, you're probably going to have pretty sophisticated state actors. I know early on, I saw a friend Lloyd was reporting to various GPU cluster providers, okay, there's an attack ongoing, this is going to be used for theft, this is the signature of what this attack would look like running on GPUs. If you see this, monitor for it and shut it down. Because again, hopefully it's the sort of thing where if you can limit it to the GPUs that people have got in their cupboards, there's less than somebody just spinning up a cluster for 100 GPUs and firing this thing off. Yeah. But if they do that, then you're doing it with KYC and various other things, so if it can be monitored, then you put yourself in danger. So again, raises the cost. So it's nice to see that reaction to it. It was interesting to see that AI played both an offensive and, well, we assume offensive and definitely defensive role in this, of scanning all those code bases. I know for me personally, I was there with Rick the whole time, doing various things. So, one of the things that you need to do is start to verify this stuff yourself. And so I got all of the latest firmware from the affected devices, like, downloaded locally, so that I could have my own agents crawling over that code base and just checking, like, if I had any questions around, all right, well, this seems to be an exploit in the random number generator. If I insert dice, is that used? Like, show me the code path, show me exactly what calls what. Let's walk through this step by step, and you can start to do that analysis yourself. Like, you could probably just say, is it safe? And that'll get you one level of analysis. If you understand a bit more, you can talk the AI agents through how to analyze it. Mm-hmm. But it can give you a little bit more just insight into exactly how things are done on the device that you wouldn't necessarily have maybe done 5 years ago. I couldn't have just audited the code because I don't know. I'd have got lost in the C stuff, and I'd have got lost in the Python bits. Like, it's not where I'm used to programming. So the ability to just audit code very quickly and talk through how various paths work and confirm that they're being called correctly from multiple different models, and again attempt to find all those exploits yourself, can be quite reassuring, like in that sort of situation. Another one that I was using quite a lot and was so Rick is my core agent. Like, he has sub agents. Like, whenever it has these buzz things at the moment with like 20 agents, I'm like, why do you want to manage 20 agents? Yeah. Like, that's for the agent to manage the 20 agents. I want to manage one. Yeah. Well, one. It's not true. I have like 5, but I think this is a slight aside. I reckon you segregate your agents based on like information that you want them to know and places that they've got access to. So it's access and information, not role. Role-based agents, I think, is strange. Just let your chief of staff manage the roles. But anyway, so working through that, what I had Rick do is he already has access to my Twitter, and there was like various people that I was following for the updates, and that became the communication platform for the whole thing. Obviously, I'll always call it Twitter. Yeah. Nothing else. X for the new kids. They're online. But yeah, he was basically pulling my Twitter threads every 10 minutes and like pulls it into like the local database. And then I'd have him analyze all and said, look, these are the people that I'm particularly interested as high signals, but also, cast a wide net and figure out what else is going on. Yeah. And then I want an update every 15 minutes in this channel on Flight Deck that tells me what's changed, has anything moved, is there any material impact that we should be worried about across these devices. So if you find anything material, I want it validated in code, and I want you to report on exactly where it is in the code that this has come out. So as new exploits were coming out, I had this system where I was getting, within 10 minutes, I had like a validated proof of like, okay, this is where in the code that exploit is, and we can believe that. Like, here's a claim, but I can't verify it because it's all hearsay. And it was just tracking this whole thing live for me, and then creating like reports when I needed to for various different things. And I was like, shit, it just really like struck me. I was like, this is incredibly useful, like to do. Like, it was, and you almost needed that sort of real time, like emergency management situation. Yep. And it's like a lot of the stuff around like gathering all the data from Twitter is all scripted. He does that anyway. I just changed the scope of what I was pulling and how often. But like, that's kind of nice because it just doesn't change too much. But then the analysis of that every 10 minutes is like, I couldn't do that myself. Like, I almost couldn't read it enough. So it became very useful to have like an on-the-line reporter that would just tell me like exactly what's changed. And I was like, okay, sweet, this is good. Yeah.
I think this has like broad-based potential for companies in pretty much any situation, because traditionally you'd have like a really expensive like outsourced function around crisis management, especially if you're a publicly listed company. If something goes wrong, like your mining company, like they would basically bring in, crisis managers.
Some like they also do have internal stuff, because I've managed
if you're big enough, yeah. But if you're like a smaller company, like that's a burden you can't necessarily carry. On the like infrequent basis that crisis might occur. Yeah. But I think to be able to just spin up like an incident response room with your agents and just have like
Yep.
like live tracking of all of that information, have it essentially filed, have it filed and scored and then distributed to the right people. If you've got reporting requirements, you can align to those outputs as well, and all of a sudden you can keep third parties notified.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of scope there that is still not really being explored for agent use.
Yep.
And this was like, when you were describing how you were using it over the weekend, I was just like, oh wow, this is quite handy. Like even like stuff you'd not necessarily think of as a crisis.
Yeah.
But even if you just want to be on top of like, you know, various things that are happening that might impact your company, and you just stand up that kind of a situation room.
Yeah.
That's really useful.
I mean, look, for a lot of it could be the weather, it could be.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, even this Iran war has just fucked a lot of people, right? Like just you can't swing the price of oil like 50% either way and not put people out of business. Like there's a lot of stuff to monitor these days that it seems that you can't necessarily keep on top of in real time. I mean, just the fact that this is very code based, it fit very nicely into that situation. And I was in various like Signal groups with local meetups and stuff talking about what was going on, trying to answer questions. If I didn't know anything, it's like, okay, here's my report that Rick's put together. So, you know, we want to understand, you know, just trying to get like examples of the randomness and like how you would crack it and like how many turns it takes and size of GPU farms and stuff like that. And like you just build it out on the fly. You can just write programs to calculate it all for you. It's like, it was nuts.
Yeah.
And it kind of built on, like, I'd been tracking Twitter stuff for a while. Again, it's not that like Rick is just on Twitter as an agent, like, but there's scripts that he's written that then go and just gather the data for me so that he's got access to stuff that I might want to know. So I had this in my Book of Sand website, which I nicked from Arian from last year, which was, it would kind of just track the news and tell me like what's new in AI and what's new in Bitcoin, like what's going on. And again, it would flag stuff to me before I'd seen it, because it can just watch Twitter in a way that I can't. And it would just give me one thing an hour that's an interesting thing. It just keeps me abreast of a like an industry or something in a way that, like, if I try and do that myself, if I tried to go on Twitter and find one thing an hour that was interesting, I would spend all day on Twitter. Like, if you know what I mean? Like, whereas if I'm already in flight deck anyway and it just pops up and says, oh, here's a message. Yeah. This is interesting. I'd be like, yeah, it is interesting. Cheers. And I just get rid of it. Exactly. It doesn't pull me out of my work. It just sort of surfaces where I am. And that was really interesting. But yeah, it was interesting then to take that database and go to that next level of just like, all right, now do this analysis on it. Now I need to be informed around this. These are the things that I care about in this situation. And you need to keep me on top of it. And then I just sort of ratcheted that back through the weekend, whereas it was like every 15 minutes, and then it became like a once an hour. Then it was like, all right, let's just do this twice a day. Keep on top of it. But I think we've passed the thing. And I would, just drop messages in and say, like, okay, follow this person, this person's good, this person's got a lot of data on this at the moment. So
I think there's also an element of being able to assess what to pay attention to. Like that's kind of a byproduct of any kind of crisis situation, is there's a lot of information flying around. And you need to be able to figure out, okay, what's the signal? What do I need to know? What do I need to act on? And you need to do it quickly. And I think like that confluence of events is the bit that causes the stress. Because you're trying to navigate in like uncertain territory. And having your agent just be able to go, hang on a second, let me handle the noise. And let me filter this for you. And here's step 1, step 2, step 3. These are things you need to go and check. I think that's incredibly useful, especially if you're talking to someone who's maybe like less technical than you as well. Because I know my first thought was, shit, how widespread is this? Is this going to be something that's limited to Coldcard, or are we going to basically have like that was just my first thought, right?
And
I
it's
think that was
very
like,
reasonable.
It's just a natural. It's a natural reaction, I think, to the situation. And I think I told you, like, I was moving house at the time. So I'd seen a tweet in the morning from someone reporting that they'd had their wallet drained. And that was it. I hadn't really followed anything because I was right in the midst of a move. And then I think we'd kind of messaged each other, and then later that night, I kind of got across everything. But I was like, if I was one of those people potentially in that situation, like I wouldn't have responded to it. I would have just missed it.
Yeah.
So again, like having an agent, like the difficulty with the agent is you, like crisis response, like teams are not like necessarily waiting around all the time to give you information, but like an agent could, and it would be relatively inexpensive to just be like searching out the news and going, oh, this is a situation you need to be on top of because it affects X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And I think that is quite handy. And not something that's going to cost you a whole lot. So I think that's been quite good. And I know we've obviously both been pretty big on using agents for knowledge management, filtering through the kinds of information that we need to get our hands on quite quickly, rather than being lost in feeds.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes life, like real life, gets in the way of this stuff. Like I did see someone else tweet, I can't remember who it was, but he was away on holiday, had to get his neighbour to try and like, you know, find his Coldcard, find his seed phrase, and then see if his money was still in. See if his Bitcoin was still there, and yeah, it was nuts. So those kinds of situations, like what do you do if you're not in the same country as your wallet and your seed phrase, and then you don't know it off the top of your head, and there's all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, real life can get in the way, and that can add a degree of stress. And I just think these agents are going to be really handy at being able to filter out all the signal. And I think that should alleviate some stress as well. I
mean, because the underlying stress, I think a lot of people in that space are now feeling is that just it shook a very like foundational brick. So you can reasonably quickly tell yourself that like, all right, it's that particular bug is that, and I'm okay because I'm not exposed to that. But on top of that, you just go, fuck, what else? What else is wrong? And that is perfectly reasonable. So, like, that's just the natural thing. And then, because there's also like, it's like this stampede, right? Like, I don't know, you know, in Kings Park, right? They've got the escarpment.
Yep.
You know, the Aboriginals at the time, they used to hunt animals by setting a fire at the back of Kings Park, and they just drive them all off the cliff. Yeah. And you got to feel like it just has that sort of feel around the place at the moment, where it's like, fuck, is this just like the fire to drive everybody off a cliff? And like, where am I moving? Like, what am I changing here? Like, how comfortable am I in this? Because everybody is doing it like in a fucking instant like this. And it's like, fuck. It's just like, so to be able to have these little robots that will go and help you understand these things and help you try and assess your risk. Like, if nothing else, you are going to be 100 times better than you would be on your own. So it was a very interesting experience working with them and like talking people through setups and trying to help them move and get themselves straight and deal with issues. Well,
it is just a perfect example of like risk down in our like other stuff model of capital up, margin up, risk down.
I remember that.
that old chestnut.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it is, because that is probably the one component of that model that we probably don't spend a whole heap of time on. Like, we tend to over-index on margin up and capital up, obviously. But this is a really good example of risk down. I think oftentimes when we're talking to companies about how they should be using agents, I think the risk down bit gets less, like almost like that preventative maintenance pitch, which is just easy to ignore for a lot of people because the risk isn't like in their face. But I think this is like, this is a really good example. I mean, it's a sad example, obviously, for a lot of people.
Horrible.
It's just a really, like, it was gut-wrenching to just see people, you know, some of the OGs just like, you know, sharing their stories, and I was just like, oh, fuck, like, this is viscerally painful now. But yeah, the agent use case, I think, is going to be really fascinating. I don't know if we want to talk about like just how we're using agents to like manage knowledge and filter out information. And
I think we should, like, because you were talking about
just
Pliny the Elder. Like,
Pliny the Elder.
Kind of talked about Buck of Sand a little bit. Is just, you can imagine it like an agent that runs And again, like I try when I say agents, the way I think about this is why I need to do like a whole review of the Wingman system so people can understand what I'm talking about. But like a lot of it is just programs that the agents write for themselves that run on demand and like gather stuff. So you can gather together data from various places on the internet just programmatically, and then you use the agent to classify that and to, you know, build these knowledge graphs of what's going on, what it means, draw links between different stories. And then I've been kind of reasonably naively just using it as like a news capturing system until like this last weekend. But I was really interested in hearing more about your approach to this.
Yeah, I think it was very much inspired by like Book of Sound, but I got to a point where I was like, you know, I read a lot of books to learn, but I read Twitter to consume. But I feel like there's still a lot of like, I mean, there's a heap of like really interesting content on Twitter, especially now that the like I'm actually seeing people I follow again.
Yeah, it did get better.
And that was kind of a reminder that there is actually a lot of good stuff on Twitter if you can find it.
A lot of good stuff or a lot of intelligence snacks?
Oh, that's true. Well, not yet. Hopefully we'll start to disseminate a few of the snacks on Twitter. But yeah, and I kind of wanted to get to a point where I was like, initially the thought was quite similar to Book of Sound. I was like, again, let's just find the signal and the noise and like remove the 2 to 3 hours a day that I'm probably on to just scrolling on Twitter. But I got to a point where I was like, yeah, I read because I want to learn, and there are certain clusters that I'm more interested in like going deeper in. And so yeah, Pliny was really like part news capture but part educational briefing. So the agent will go and basically it might identify a tweet from someone that I follow and go, yeah, this really aligns well to, I don't know, agent use in business systems. So I don't know, that's very specific, but it might be something along those lines. But the tweet in and of itself is kind of abstract because it touches on like one aspect. So I want the agent to then just go and say, yes, this is relevant. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to go and conduct my own research, and then I'm going to compile this into like essentially a briefing, something that gives me like something I can consume, but go a bit deeper and build my own knowledge. And if I've never encountered that kind of content before in Pliny, it will basically do an ELI 5. And if I already have like a bunch of artifacts on that knowledge, it will just build on the stuff that already exists, and will cite, you know, other sources that already exist. And so I'm partly building that kind of feedback loop into Pliny as well. Yeah. So that I can track what I've read in the past and how it relates to the kind of new content that I'm seeing and who posted what. And like, it's not necessarily a graph, it's just like linking artifacts together. So that it doesn't just become like a disposable newspaper. It kind of looks like a newspaper at the moment, but yeah, the idea is that it's meant to help me actually learn more about the stuff that I'm interested in and go deeper. And then I've got like essentially this like this chain of thought where I can go back and see like how this stuff compounds and what content I've built this on and what assumptions that it's been built on. Because, you know, there might be a really good tweet, but it might be like half-baked. It hasn't really been thought through. So there might be good replies to the tweet that are actually useful as well, that factor into that brief too.
So like a highly personalised sort of daily newspaper.
Exactly.
Of Twitter.
Well, it's not just Twitter,
but
yeah. I think Twitter's like been one of the primary sources. I think there's probably like, I mean, it can do like a general web search.
Of all the social networks, Twitter is the most news-like.
I think so.
I think just because it had that short, punchy, like real-time nature to it when it first launched, as being like, this is what's going on now, as opposed to.
It's often very good at like incepting the nugget, the idea that is worth exploring in more detail. I think, which is kind of the way I'd like to use. Like sometimes, I think I mentioned to you, like sometimes I will just like hit the grok button at the top of the tweet because I'm curious, and I'll go, oh, this is interesting. Because doing this is like one of Luke Groman's tweets recently, because I was just like, you know, especially when you get tweets like that where you're like, do you know what, I would quite like to dig into the history a little bit. I can't remember what it was. This was like a few weeks back. But you know, or there may be like some data that is cited that hasn't been necessarily fleshed out in detail in a tweet because it's a tweet. So I'm like, okay, let me ask Grok more about the data that's in this tweet. And then that I found I was using that anyway, but I was like, this is still time consuming and I don't get to do it on everything. And I'm still scrolling a heap. So let me actually just compile all this stuff into one place, surface that information on like a set cadence. So I don't run it as often as, I mean, right now I'm just doing it, running that pipeline manually.
Okay.
But I'd probably get it on a set cadence, you know, 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's weird, because when I first started the Book of Sound, I was like, I could just send it once an hour.
Yeah.
But I don't read it every hour. I'll kind of like go back to it. And it lives in a thread, or a channel that just is those newsletters. But yeah, it's hard to know like what the right cadence is, right? Because you probably want to read it each time. Otherwise, you're probably never going to go and read 10 of them at once.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of refer to it as like, maybe a daily newspaper or something like that, where it's once a day. But I can imagine once or twice.
Going deeper on like a smaller, like the thing that...
It's like a newspaper, you can click a story and you get more.
Yes, exactly. I think my problem with the news feed, like with a Twitter feed, for instance, is that it's just so, like it's a wide diaspora of like everything. And your your context switching like constantly, like in nanoseconds as you like scroll down the feed. And I found that was probably not the most useful thing mentally for me to be doing. But you still can't look away because that's where the knowledge is dropping. That's where the events are happening. Like everything's happening first there, and you kind of want to be across it. And you kind of almost feel like a little, like, not left out, but maybe behind if you're not there. But then, as we've spoken about before, it's also such a bubble.
Yeah, it's all, a lot of it's just fake lies.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, you can't get too caught up in it.
So some of it is just like, well, how do I actually like filter out the nonsense here? And what can I actually learn from it? If I can't learn from anything, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And I don't know, to some degree I was like, how would I do this if I was like in school? Like, well, I wouldn't just read like, 180 characters. I'd pick up a book and then I'd go deeper in that book, and then maybe there's another book and you pick that book up. Like if I was trying to learn a new subject matter, I'd probably go and find like the top 5 books on that subject and just read them back to back. That's what I would ordinarily do. And then that would give me like at least a foundation to work from. And I just like, I feel like I could just get these curated briefings every day on stuff that's actually interesting. Now, there might not be anything that is all that interesting that aligns well to the kind of topical clusters that I've started mapping out. But yeah, it almost doesn't have to be, which is the beauty of it. It doesn't need to be like continuously finding me information to consume. That's the consumer mindset. It's like it needs to meet a certain threshold where I'm actually learning stuff, and it needs to be building on stuff that we've already found in the past.
Well, and maybe there's something to be said about introducing a little bit of friction and time there. So maybe you could imagine a situation where you might like read your Twitter newspaper once a day, and you're like, I feel so much like more at peace with the world, and you go, that's an interesting subject, and then you click a button, and instead of it won't have it to hand, right? Like, because the AI hasn't yet gone and read the top 10 books on that, but you could sort of indicate interest and be like, Jeeves, I'm interested in this story. And then you might not hear about it for another day, but then maybe tomorrow when it comes back, you've got that story and it says, there's an editorial section in today's paper, sir, which is all about the story you mentioned yesterday. And it has gone and read the 10 books, and it spent some time prepping it. And you kind of absorb it at a more human speed.
Yes.
Like there's a lot about social media that's not it's too much in a way. There is something like, I was telling you, I now have like my bots just reading LinkedIn, because I was like, if there's one place I don't really want to read, but I feel like I sort of have to be vaguely across because of work, it's LinkedIn. And even even just the human like reading of LinkedIn, it doesn't work. Like there's no chronological feed. It just throws stories around all over the place. You can't tell what anybody's said previously. It's just sort of absolute fucking potluck. And then most of it is just like when people moan about AI on LinkedIn, I'm like, do did you read LinkedIn before AI? Like, it's no different.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just like the fact that a human creates the bullshit slop or a
Yeah.
machine creates the bullshit slop. I really don't care.
They've got the AI. Is this AI
It's
slot
just-
button now? And
I
I'm like,
know.
you could have always had this.
That's-
Yeah.
Everyone was telling me about it, and I was like, it's like, well, how is there a button that just says this is human slop that I don't
Yeah.
want to read either? Like, I don't think it's AI, but I just do not want to read this nonsense. But yeah, it was. But it's been quite useful for that, where it'll slowly again just consolidates the information into a large database for me
Mm.
that I can then start to use to make decisions on, but without having to consume it in that feed way
Yeah.
that it is. That's been quite. I can see that coming in useful.
One of the things that I know, like I kind of, as I was like mapping out this pipeline, one of the thoughts I had was the thing that an X feed gives you is like a degree of randomness and serendipity. This was the thing that I couldn't necessarily recreate in a deterministic way. I'd
Yes,
basically lose
yeah,
all of the
yep,
serendipity
yep,
and the randomness. And so I was like trying to work out like, okay, I've got a specific number of known clusters that I would want to explore in more detail, but I've essentially established those through a random walk where I'm like, oh, actually, that's quite interesting. Like I've come across that information somewhere, or come across a tweet, and then gone, yeah, I'd like to learn more about that. And so that was the bit where I was like, this is hard to substitute. And so that is like one of these like essentially working questions I still have with Pliny is like, how do I still inject an element of randomness?
Well,
and some of
maybe-
it is the feedback loop.
Yeah.
So and this is something that doesn't really work now, but maybe in like a month from now, Pliny will go, right, you might find this interesting because you've explored like some subset of knowledge that might have a loose connection. But even that is not like purely random walk.
Yeah, it reminds me. This is like probably like inside baseball. You remember like when we were doing the design work for like educational graphs back in the day? It just sort of reminds me of that so much, where we would say like, look, you have your own current knowledge graph, and then what you almost want is a subject area graph.
Yes.
So that you can compare, like, okay, well, I know these nodes and I have interest around here, and maybe I want to go over here. I need some sort of baseline to project this onto to say, what are the obvious nodes that are missing? Yeah, like you can't necessarily do it from your own graph.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that view of the whole thing yet. That's the whole point, is you're learning about it. But there could be something else in these public graphs that just sort of explain a subject.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily have all the detail on it, but it's like the ontology for
Yes.
this space looks like this, and you go, okay, so if I project that onto my graph, I can say I've probably missed some stuff around here, so maybe I go explore over there. It's that thing that then drives you forwards. Like, and that would probably, that's like what a teacher does, right? And a mentor, right? It's somebody that's their graph is more developed than your graph, and they say, oh, you're missing these bits over here, but the way you would get there is through these ideas, and we'll walk you that way. And that's kind of what you want from Pliny, is right? Is that I need you to know everything, and then I need you to figure out on my version what don't I know.
Yeah.
I need you to guide me how to get there.
I think that
And to see that people that are interested. I mean, this is probably where Facebook, like the whole. I think a lot of the development of graph databases was around this idea of like, we have all these like clusters of people that know and like stuff. What else might they like? It's just, they've got a graph database of everybody in it. You don't have that. You've got a graph database of your own interests.
Yeah.
So I imagine if you could go and get like, if you were a Facebook level company, you could probably do a lot of this work by figuring out, all right, well, where might be interesting next, but you aren't an evil lizard person. I hope.
That's very true.
I hope. Sorry, I don't.
Let's not make assumptions.
I don't want to assume, but
It's a pretty safe assumption, I think. Yeah. It would be news to
not
me.
lizard.
How well do we really know ourselves?
I mean, we've
That's
sat here
the
for a
question.
while. I've never seen your eyes just flick up
That's
inside
true.
your head. So that's
That is true. Yeah.
one
They are very like,
one data point. But
it's a subjective one, but yeah.
I wonder like how else we can do that. There.
Because like some of it is just incredibly random. Like I quite enjoy, like for instance, like the initial cluster I built this around was AI, because obviously like we use this for everything we do at the moment. It's just such a central part of our lives. But also, while it's not actually something I built into Pliny, I wanted it to help me find like essentially content sources as well that I can go out and share with people that follow us. And I thought that would be quite useful, but I want to be able to learn something here. I don't just want it to be like recycled information, which seems pretty pointless, like anyone can do this. But you can't necessarily account for like things where there aren't necessarily any obvious connections to. So, how agents work and, I don't know, the last line of Roman emperors are probably not connected in any meaningful way. And so like those are like super disparate. And I might miss something really interesting about a particular Roman emperor if my topic cluster is just purely geared for AI.
So maybe this is, I mean, because you've got to know to do that, right? But because it does open the door to say like, well, I could just have my agents go and listen to this podcast that Justin sent me of like 1 million hours about the Roman Empire, and then it builds the graph, and then I know where I fit on that sort of graph.
Yeah.
So maybe there is something like that where it needs to go and do a whole bunch of additional reading. It just has to say like, okay, well, and he's looking at these subjects. What's like this subject? What else can I find that's out there? And how can I consume all of that? And then it sort of like, it's not that like it knows everything about the subject area. It just knows the next 2 edges away from where you are. It's just you don't know it yet.
Yeah.
And so the idea is there's always somebody like, there's always this joke about in consulting where it's like the job of the consultant is just read like 2 pages ahead of the client. Like you don't necessarily need to be an expert, but you need to be further along the book than they are, so that when they ask you a question, you can answer confidently. Like, it's this. I read it yesterday. Anyway, I'm just gonna go home and read. I've got 2 more pages.
I'll get back to you next week. Yeah.
But like, it's that sort of thing, where that I could see working, because then it doesn't require to have like the whole of the knowledge thing. It's just you need that element of randomness to say, okay, project forwards, like if I'm interested in this, what else might I be interested in? Go and find people on Twitter that you can follow. Go and find podcasts that make sense, and then you consume that and build a graph, and then compare that to where I am, and then see where we've got overlaps between the two. I mean, this is way more data intensive, but like that would make sense as a search algorithm, because it's searching the edges from where you are currently.
Yeah, my original thought was to use the graph as essentially like a topical map of my own interests, and it will just continue to grow as I consumed more of a particular topic. Because essentially I was thinking like the briefings that come through, I'd just have like a simple feedback system where I'd be like, oh, I'm not really that interested in this, or I am super interested in this, and then that would help like identify future sources that I might want to go and look at. But equally, I was concerned that might narrow the scope.
Well, I think it does. I think that narrows it, but I think that's fine, because you kind of like, you build good sources into it. You say, okay, I don't care about that, and that will help. But I really do think there's something there where like, I think an LLM is actually probably almost a perfect way to project. Yeah. Like, well, because it's got that probabilistic style to it. It has that bit of entropy. Like, it's really built on the idea of a lot of people that say these words also say these words.
Yes.
And the question you're really asking it is like, I'm liking these words. What are similar words?
Yes.
And then, okay, now take those words and go and find stuff for those words. But that like core question of just, oh, if I like these words, what other words might I like, is just such an LLM question to ask.
True. Yeah.
That I think it really fits. I hadn't really thought about that problem like that. As I said, I always kind of came at it from where you need a kind of complete public graph, and I think that's probably overdoing it. I think you really could do this step out. We should do that.
Yeah, I think so. It's a good experiment, if
right,
nothing else.
It's business on air. We should do that. That'd be cool. Oh, there you go. 2 pages. Oh, yeah, he's listening. Rod's listening. Look at that.
Shout out to Rod. Thank you very much.
Shout out to Rod. I mean, I'm typing it and saying it on
Yes.
the podcast. There we go. We've got a listener. Who knew?
Our first listener to Intelligence
Or first, like,
Snacks,
we're never
maybe.
actually known, except when we've had,
Yeah.
like, obviously people
Comments.
in the van.
Yes.
You
Well, that's
know
true,
that
yeah.
there's somebody in the van. And they say, oh, yeah, I listen every week. But you're like, oh, just,
Do you? Do you?
do
really?
you? Do you listen live, though? That's the question. That's the new...
This,
That's the-
yeah, I mean, maybe we need to
Friend of
also
the pod.
start doing
Friend of the Rod.
pod, yeah, pod before the pod could
Rod of the
actually
pod?
be
Yeah.
like a live
Oh,
stream
maybe.
on Nostr.
Yeah,
Pod before
that's
the
true,
pods.
yeah, because we do usually cover everything. Like
Yeah.
about 5 minutes before we go, oh, we should.
Our best material
We
is
should
often
start it.
spent in the pod before the pod.
All brought to you by Shosho. .live. Shout out Shosho.live for being easy enough. Like, I've never streamed anything
There you
before
go.
in my life. So this was kind of interesting.
That's very nice.
Fuck, what were we talking about? We talking about the graph stuff. Yeah, I think we should
we should give that a go.
build that.
Yeah.
I think that would be quite interesting.
For anyone interested, I will have some more Pliny updates coming soon.
All right.
It's been fun. I mean, I'm just completely addicted to just building these little wingman apps, aka WAPs. And like every idea that pops into my head, I'm like, that could be a WAP. Let's go.
It's.
I said this last week. I've got a real like.
You got a WAP problem. Too much WAP.
ADHD. There's too much WAP. Yeah.
I forget that
God.
it has other meanings.
It's
these
got a
days,
cultural meaning of its own.
but,
Yeah.
that's okay.
But yeah, managing that like ADHD component is a challenge. So partly where the inspiration for Pliny came from, actually. So I need to cut out as many of these like impacts on my mental load as possible.
Definitely, there's too much to know. I mean, as you know, I've been doing like a ton of work just on getting flight deck ready. Like, I mean, we talked about it last week. I was a little bit gutted when Buzz came out because I was like, this would have landed harder if that wasn't already out there. But it's okay.
Yeah,
It's
I think that's just part and parcel of products. There's always something that's coming out.
Yeah.
So, and there's stuff we can learn from it as well.
I think it helps set the scene as well because it's. I always was fairly certain that like multi-person, multi-agent comms in that. I still prefer the way I've organised it in Flight Deck, obviously, because it's for me also. But I think there's some useful surfaces in there that even like Buzz could learn from for that. But it's. Yeah, we'll see. Like
Completely.
All right, I feel like we
think-
got completely like sidetracked there
That's all
because
right.
we saw a message.
We're kind of bang on an hour, so
on the thing.
we will get better at live streaming, maybe.
Yeah.
Debatable.
You know, I don't even know how to sign off on this one. So
Yeah, 'cause
maybe
we don't
we're just
have
gonna
a-
have to keep talking.
We don't have an actual sign off now, because that's the good stuff.
Yeah,
You
but
could
it's
keep
not-
saying that, but it would be quite confusing. Not
Yeah.
on brand anymore.
It's not on brand. You got to remain on brand and on naming at all
Yeah.
times. But there we go. All right.
That's a
Well,
wrap.
that's the intelligence snacks.